Because usually I love to walk around, but I can stick here. Like that's fine too. Let me start off with a small apology. I didn't fully introduce you with your full name before. I'm very sorry about that. Hilde Hardeman, it was really great to have you here. And as last year, it was a very, very nice, insightful talk. Thank you very much for that. And you gave a great kickoff, actually, with what you just answered to my question, to this talk, the age of AI, which I believe is the age of creativity. And people that know me, maybe from previous conferences and so on, they know I'm usually a very motivational speaker. And don't worry, there's going to be enough motivation in what is about to come. However, I decided to still talk about a few crucial business impacts. Why is that? Because I really, and I said this at the beginning, I really want the word about this conference to spread out. Because I really believe, also if you're coming from the business side, if you're coming from a big enterprise, this is a conference where you can take a lot of insights with you, which also really relate to what you have to do. Namely, you have to, in the end, if you apply it in a business, in the enterprise, you have to make money with it. That's just the way it is. So I'm going to talk also a little bit about that today. That's actually the new name of my company, IdeaWay AI, just for you to know. Last year we were here under the name VUI. And actually IdeaWay was always our name, our legal name. We were always called in Germany, the thing is called GmbH. IdeaWay GmbH was always our name. And basically we now said, let's go back to the roots, because in the end, it was always the founding idea to create this hub of creativity. And usually when I talk about my team, I introduce them about the experts of creativity and experience in the field of AI. Let me see if this one here is working. Yes, it is. So, a little bit different title, but I will talk about this creative point within this. So, I call this here Beyond Bots. AI that understands, learns, and transforms customer experience. So, what do I mean by that? In the end, when we talk about one important application, an application that has dominated the use of technologies that used in some way or the other, at least AI-based technologies, was customer service. And customer service, in my eyes, is really crucially about how you make people feel. Let me give you one example about that, which is from a great author, Simon Sinek. He wrote the book Start With Why. Highly recommended, also his other books. And he has a nice little clip on YouTube where he talks exactly about that. How do you make people feel? Now this is about an interaction, not with an AI, but with a real human being. So I think it fits well into the setting here. We're on a conference. Somehow, last day gets canceled. We're here and we want to get home to our family. So, calling the airline and saying like, I checked your website, you have a flight tonight available. I was booked on a flight tomorrow, and I really want to go home to my family. Could you please rebook me to that other flight? I'm sorry, sir, you have the wrong class of ticket. I cannot rebook you. I think, really, it's like, you know, it doesn't matter to me. I will pay whatever premium it takes, but I see there is seats available. Just please, could you get me on the plane that is leaving tonight? I told you, sir, you have the wrong class of ticket. There's nothing I can do. It's one possible interaction. The other interaction goes like that. I'm explaining, you know, sir, I'm really sorry. Looks like you have the wrong class of ticket, but let me see what I can do. I really want to get you home. Let me see. I'm try a few things. That didn't work. But it's really important to me that we get you home, so let me talk to my supervisor. Can you give me a few minutes? He's away, comes back. Sir, I'm really sorry. I really tried everything. The problem is the computer doesn't let me to do it. That's fine. Thank you for your help. Same result. I don't get the early flight. How do I feel in the two instances? Very different. Right? And what I also want to highlight with this example, this is an interaction that an AI cannot do. Because we don't believe that it worries so much about getting us home. Now, if a human being says, I'm really sorry, I know you want to go home to your family, I really want to get you there, we believe this from a human being. We just don't believe it from an AI. Actually, if an AI tries to do something like, I'm going to talk to my supervisor, we just say, well, that's fake. Why would it have to talk to its supervisor? It just doesn't work. So there is a fine line that you have to draw in deciding where do you use AI and which parts of the interaction do you actually consciously leave to human beings. Now, this is an example I also mentioned quickly yesterday night, but I'm gonna tell it here again to the big audience. For example, when I consult companies on this application of customer service, I'm telling them there's some few important strategic decisions you have to make. And it's exactly about this point. Where do I use AI? And where do I let human beings do the work? One application, one use case that I always, from my personal view, always recommend in the following way. If someone calls you and tells you, I want to cancel my contract, that's the point where I would immediately escalate to a specially trained human being. Why? Because in that instance, you want to show respect. You want someone to stand there as a representative of your company and say, we are really sorry that you're leaving. And the other person has to feel that you're sorry. We're really sorry that you're leaving. Can you tell us what we did wrong? And is there any chance that you give us a second chance? Now, this costs more money. You have to, you have to have a certain group of people that is immediately available, that can immediately be escalated to. But let's talk about the numbers. Let's talk about the business value. The business value of keeping a customer for another 5 years is huge. Is huge. And people like to tell stories. And they tell stories about two things. Things that went amazingly well, and things that went amazingly bad. The stories you usually hear about customer service usually fall into these two categories. Someone telling you, wow, this was a really cool experience, I really love that customer service, it's so great. And this starts a cycle of promotion for your company that you have not even paid for. There's no marketing budget involved, it's just about how you make people feel. And then there's the other stories. The stories where people tell that was not good customer service. Right? So, again, just a statistic to make the business value of caring about how you make people feel. 96% of unhappy customers actually do not tell you anything. They do not tell you that they're unhappy, and 91% just leave. You will never even find out. This is actually also something that you can take care of, you can think about, well, how can I actually ask for people's feedback? Just reaching out to them, saying like, how are you doing? I saw a presentation by, I think it was Vodafone, on the summit in Hamburg, which talked exactly about that. They have now implemented just like, a small framework. It's just about the question, how are you doing? How's it currently going? Just tell us a few things. And they made it very easy. Like, collecting that feedback shouldn't take too long. So they were just saying, like, how are you doing? Just give us a little bit of feedback. And then you give the opportunity to say, well, I'm not really happy right now. And again, if that's the point, you have to react. You have to react on the spot. Now, this is another thing that I want to talk about. So we talked now about this fine line between, what should be left to a human being and what can be done by AI, right? Now, empathetic AI, so like AI that actually shows empathy is possible. However, again, you really have to understand how you do it. And I said here, this is the power like, the example I will at least talk about is the power of a single word. So I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was on a big customer service conference in Berlin, and I saw a lot of use cases being presented. One of them was from the insurance case. I think it was even like, it was insurance about an accident. So someone had an accident, then the phone bot picks up, right? You say that, and then the phone bot starts and says like, I'm so sorry. It's a slippery slope, because you're going into the uncanny valley, because you don't really believe that the bot is sorry. However, a bot is created by a company, and a company is a collective of human beings. So if again, it's not always working, but in certain instances, you can actually switch the pronoun to say like, not I, but we. You can say, we are really sorry that you encountered these difficulties. It's now a different example, but like, assume someone is calling about a broken TV or something. You can say, we are really sorry that you're encountering these difficulties, and we're going to do our best to make it work. Then, this digital assistant is a representative of a collective of human beings, and you believe that this collective of human beings actually is sorry that this is happening to you. However, again, you have to be careful where you cross the border. If someone calls in a life insurance case and says, my wife just died, I wouldn't leave that to a bot. Even if it uses the word we. You have to make these strategic decisions. And you really, and this is why it was so nice also in the talk previously that you highlighted this point, and that you highlighted that in the EU you want to put a special focus on this. These small linguistic aspects, they are really, really, really crucial. And I had yesterday also a great interaction. I'm not sure if she's here right now. Birgit, who gave a great masterclass also yesterday, and we talked about the power of words. And a good part of my team are actually people of the word, I call it. And even in the age of generative AI, it is really, really crucial to understand the art of words. So we've worked with a lot of big brands. A lot of them, for example, in the German market, were DAX companies, very big companies, also in Switzerland, and we've seen this power of simple words really, really in action. So it can have actually a massive impact if you just change a few words in the greeting of a digital assistant. Can change massively the result of how many people actually hang up or how many people continue talking with you. And again, I want to talk about this because people here from the enterprise sector, from the companies, they need to know that there is a business case about this. So talking to all these specialists here, these people of the word, is really, really important because there's a very, very clear business case behind it. You can really multiply, for example, the amount of calls that can be handled by a digital assistant by just changing the right words at the right point. So, this is another thing I just wanted to say. This is very important. Not for every solution there is a problem. What I want to say by that is, unfortunately, in the past year, was a lot going around, okay, we need to do something with Gen AI. We need to do something with AI. Well, that's the wrong starting point. That's what I mean, like, there's a solution, but maybe you don't have the problem for it. So you have to start with the problem. What's the problem? You have to think about what are things that have long been on my mind, that I struggled with, things that I couldn't handle, for example, for my customers, for example, because they were prohibitively expensive. And then you look at the new technologies that are currently reeling in, and you say like, well, this problem here is a perfect case that I can now solve with a technology that was previously not at my disposal. This is a really, really crucial difference in approaching a problem. Right? And this is another thing I saw also in Berlin, was on a night event. I saw 2 use cases for AI that were presented in the same night event. The first one was about configuring a car, and the main use case for AI in this case was to have a avatar walking around the car. And I asked afterwards, I said, why are you taking the focus away from the product that is at the center of the attention here? Of course you can build a great digital experience around the car configuration, but why would you let an avatar walk around this car when the focus in that moment is on the car? There was, however, a second use case presented, which was a call center. The problem was the agents that worked there, they were completely stressed out. Every night they arrived with 50 to 100 unanswered mails. And yeah, it was a big problem. Case of AI use in that case was a Gen AI solution was employed to basically summarize these mails, take the main points out, and suggest the next steps for the human agent. Led to, I think, a decrease in the handling time for these emails from around 9 minutes to 3 minutes. Again, huge business case. And the stress was gone. People were actually afterwards, they were saying like, is something wrong with the system? I don't have a full inbox at the end of my day. But it was just because like they were able to handle the workload all of a sudden. And now there's a really important thing about that. Why is this also a great use of AI? When these emails are about complaints, we know ourselves. We don't always say like, you could have was suboptimal. Could have done a little bit better here. This is not usually how these things are formulated. Sometimes they might carry insults, things like that. And a human being has to read this one after the other. Well, why don't we let an AI take the emotion out of that? Right? Filter the emotion out, and basically give the agent just the information, this customer is really angry. He will receive the same information and he can react to it, but it's very different from reading this customer is really angry than to have read all of these heavy words. And this is a great complementarity between human work and AI work. And this is the things we should be looking for. So, what I want to encourage all of us to do is start with the pain points, especially in the age of Gen AI. And actually, I'm not going to talk about the very last thing that I have here on the slides, because I want to talk about one more thing. I'm just going to put this very last slide. This one here is another one just for the business case. Remember this, costs 5 times more to win new customers than to keep existing ones. So care about how you make people feel. Just if you like, you can visit this one here, you can visit us, but let me make one last point, which is, over the last years, we've talked to a lot of companies about how important it is when you create a digital assistant that you actually understand how you want to talk to people. Let's call it conversational CI. Let's call it conversation guidelines. And it's really, really crucial that you really start thinking about this if you're working in an enterprise, if you're working with these use cases. Why? It was again, another conference, it was, I think, 3 weeks ago, head of conversational AI of Allianz Insurance. She was on the stage and she made 2 important points. She said, a conversational AI project really only starts after the launch. Why? Because then you get the real data. And AI is always trained on real data. Before that, you're only working on hypothesis. Second thing is that, in my eyes, she said, the most important differentiator in the next years is going to be things like a corporate voice and how you talk with your customers. Why is this especially crucial in the age of Gen AI? Because as long as human beings are, still prompting everything that a chatbot or a voice bot is saying, they have an intuitive feeling for what your brand is or is not. An AI does not have that feeling at all. If you do not give it that information, it will not behave as you want your brand to behave. And I just want to give you one last picture. I have 10 seconds left. Just enough for this one last picture. When you are putting a digital assistant in front of your customers, especially as a first point of contact, for example, for routing, for taking making the first intro and saying like, hey, what are you here for today? You're basically hiring a digital employee, one employee, that talks to hundreds, thousands of your customers. And this is an experience that scales, right? So you either get what I call frustration at scale, or you get something that gets people to talk about great customer service. So you want to be on the side of the stories that talk about your customer service and that this was a really great experience. And in order to do that, you need to figure out who you are, how you're talking, and you need to put effort into building this house of a conversational AI framework. It's not a hut, If you just want to build a hut, you can run in, you can start hammering, you can put a few wood together. But if you want to build a house and you have no architecture at its foundation, it's gonna pretty soon fall apart. So think about if you want to build a hut or a house. If you want to build a hut, that's fine. Just run into it, don't plan for it. If you want to build a house, you have to plan for it. That's it. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you, Christoph. So we have time maybe for one question, if anyone in the room has a question. I'm just going to read out this comment from online from Valentina Adami. She says, so true, the project has just started once it has gone live. So she was very much agreeing with you there. I think we had a question there, yeah.
Thank you for the very great presentation. Thank you for the last point that you mentioned, because it was a perfect segue for the question I was about to ask. So you mentioned that basically virtual assistants, be them chatbots or voice bots or whatever other channels, will be essentially digital agents that you will add to your workforce within your customer service. So how do we imagine the way how we are going to measure and evaluate the performance of chatbots or whatever are the conversational interfaces beyond the CSAT, beyond the conversion rate? Are we going to translate some of the ways we are used to evaluate the human agent performance to these interfaces?
Thank you very much. Very, very good question. Let me actually answer with an angle that it's usually not looked at. One part of the evaluation should actually be how your human employees evaluate that digital colleague. That should be one thing you should really evaluate closely. We have seen great implementations of digital assistants, and again, don't jump too quickly into avatars. You really have to understand when an avatar makes sense, and there are cases where it makes sense. This was a case where a bot was even developed with an avatar, and it was accompanied by a clear strategy on how this bot was presented as a helper, as something that elevates the work that the other human beings were doing, to a degree. There was really a lot of internal marketing going around, promoting what is going to happen, how it's going to help. It ended up that employees were taking Instagram photos with the avatar of the bot, just saying I'm super happy, this is my new buddy. right? So this is something that does not happen, again, without understanding how you will help the human beings in this company, and taking them along the road from the very start, so that you're telling them, well, this is what we're going to do. This is how it's going to impact you, and maybe some of the things that you do you will not longer do, but we're going to help you, for example, to do other things. This is about what Professor Ali Fenwick yesterday talked about with humanizing, human-centric AI. It's going to be a talk by him today, also in the course of this day. And I would not only focus on measuring how happy your customers are, but really how happy your human team members are.
Thank you. There's another question popped in, but I apologize that we have run out of time for questions for Christoph, but thank you to Wendy and all the other people who have shared their thoughts online.